today's video, I will guide you through a tree rendering tutorial. So without any further ado, let's get started. First, you need to make sure you have the right equipment. I'm using a mixture of markers, of Swinton Newtons, Copics, and Touchlit, which I have previously compared, and if you haven't seen it, I will link it in the description down below. These are all of the equipment I use to render all the trees. I have used a variety of green colors. For the yellow trees, I have used a orange, yellow, and red mixture. Just like rendering anything, we have to do a base color as a background and work our way up. So the first thing that I did was to add a very light brown layer. Now when applying these, you should always go in strokes, never zigzag lines or color harshly with them. You should be very comfortable with them. Then you have to add your shades of green. Then add a little gray color, also adding this in strokes, or just tap it on the paper to make it look more like leaves than a long rectangle leaf. Sometimes when I have a few different layers, I like to add a pencil guide to just help me out a little bit. Then once again, you need to use your lightest to darkest green. Now these greens are very dark and dull, which is realistic. They are not pure green, as it looks more cartoonish in my opinion. You then use the same concept and approach to all of your trees. Remember to always consider where your shadows is. I like to think of the sun being right above to give the tree a shadow right down. It makes it look more attractive and realistic. My favorite tree is probably this one. It's a tree in autumn. I used a light orange background, which I topped with a dark orange to highlight the leaves of the tree. Once again, this I did in a comfortable stroke, tapping the tip of the marker to the paper. After, I used a red marker to show the shadows and to add more detail. I also added a few more details around the tree, which makes it look more realistic and adds detail. I always loved coconut trees, so here is one for you guys. Then just add a little grass on the floor, and that's all. Normally people like to ink the drawing first, but me, I like to do things the other way. I used a 0.3 Unipin pen and went over the edge very slowly to get the rigidness of the leaves. Now remember, the detail added in trees and on the ground also need to be inked, and here are the final sketches of the elevations. Concept of using the different shades will be the same here. The only other thing is that you need to tap the lid to the paper. You should always avoid using strokes for the plan render, just because it makes it more darker and not very attractive. Now remember, tree number 3, it was a pine tree, so just imagine how it would look from the top. It will have strokes, right? So I used the fine tip to create strokes and carried on creating strokes using a darker and darker tone. In tree number 4, you can clearly see the layer that we used. Now going back to my favorite autumn tree, it includes layers of orange and yellow and red, similar to the elevation. And for the palm tree, I drew a few palm leaves, as that's how it would look like from the top. Keeping in mind the shadow again, I have made this lower part of each tree darker. Adding detail for the plan is exactly the same for the elevation. You just go over very slowly and take your time. Nothing too crazy, just imagine the silhouettes of the leaves. And there is the final render for the plants. Architecture Insider, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment.